Can I get you anything? The young amber heroine offered me. Soda? Squirrel on a stick? Anything? My first inclination was to decline, but on second thought, water would be nice. Thank you. I watched the mare and her friend get up and push away through the crowd of ponies that had come to see Ditsy-Do. The poor mare was mobbed. Ditsy-Do was alive. She wasn't healthy, not even by any definition that applied to ghouls, but she was alive, and she would continue to live. Possibly even make a full recovery, according to Candy. Probably. There's also a good chance she'd never regain full health. Never quite have the energy or vigor she used to. But she had saved the town. Saved her daughter. Performed a miracle. As prices went in the Equestrian wasteland, this was but a small one, easy to bear. You hanging on, Lil Pip? Calamity asked as he landed next to me. The answer was no, and we both knew it. So, instead of lying, I asked, her senator? Calamity whined. I admire her courage, but it's suicide. The Enclave Skyguard will have standing orders to shoot him on sight. My friend grimaced in pain. To prevent it from spreading contagion, of course. I moaned, closing my eyes. I'm sorry. Can you convince them? I don't know, Calamity admitted. But I gotta try. Look, Lil Pip. I need to take off for a little bit. Railright has demanded our new Pegasi friends join him in his office for polite questioning. I didn't quite like the sound of that. I intend to be there with them the whole time, Calamity stated with a stomp, whether the mayor likes it or not. I weakly shifted a leg to touch his breast. Good. Keep them safe. I didn't really expect Railright to hurt them, but I suspected he wasn't above throwing them in jail for their own protection, and I doubted his interrogation would remain friendly without Calamity present. What's a senator? I asked. Calamity tilted his hat back. Member of the Senate. Low Council. They make the policies. And the High Council? Enforces the policies. They're the highest judges and generals. Calamity paused, looking at me. Well, Pip, is this really the best time? I let out a groan. No, but I need to know. I need to understand. There had been a time when I had been thankful I didn't know about Pegasi politics, but that time was past. It passed when they started killing wasteland ponies. My friend frowned, closing his eyes. Folk down here don't have anything like the Enclave. It's not really an easy thing to explain, much less to some pony who lived their whole life in the stable. Railright's going to want to know too. Yeah, I know. Clement took a deep breath, bulwarking himself. Okay, I know this is going to sound bizarre to you, but bear with me. I nodded, listening. I shouldn't be doing this now. I was tired, too frayed and too full of butterscotch rum, but part of me felt like it was now or never, and part of me thought it might do Calamity some good to explain this to a friend before having to explain it to the mayor. Calamity was silent, his eyes shifting. I could tell he was looking for a place to start. You mentioned committees before, I suggested. Oh, yeah, the orange-maned Pegasus said, grasping that. The Enclave runs the Pegasi government through committees. The councils are pretty much just large committees of ponies selected to make national decisions. The councils then appoint smaller committees to handle more localized and specialized. Mostly, it just means nothing gets done. I was very confused. So, the Enclave, is it the country, the military, or the government? Calamity laughed wearily, shaking his head. Flickering his tail, he mentally backed up. Okay, the Enclave is, well, it's not a country. All Pegasi are citizens, whether they're part of the Enclave or not. All Pegasi get to vote for who they want to represent their cities in the Low Council, and who they want to sit on the High Council. It's just that only members of the Enclave are allowed to run for government positions. And How does a Pegasus become a member of the Enclave? Ah, shucks, Lil Pip. That's easy, Calamity smirked. They enlist. So, only ponies who served in the military were qualified for government? I tried to wrap my brain around that, but it made my head spin. The Enclave grew out of an isolationist movement, Pegasi not wanting to fight in the war. Hell, I figure they reckon any pony who can survive 3 years of military education and 3 months of basic training with my father has the fortitude to run the country. The Enclave was quickly ascending to the top of my list of things that made my head hurt. It already surpassed rock farming and was working on overtaking train engines. How do you even have a military when there hasn't been a war in 200 years? I blurted, trying to snort through my confusion. Oh, there have been little skirmishes, Calamity noted. The drive to take the Griffin skies was back in Radar's time. But mostly, the military acts as internal security and cloud curtain patrol. I shook my head. I still don't get it. Who's your overmare then? Flashing back to Stable 24, I added, or overstallion, if that's what you have. This was a government, a country. Some pony has to be in charge. Some pony had to be the princess. Calamity let out a long sigh. There isn't one, Lil Pip, and that's the point. I scrunched my forehead, trying to comprehend that, but it all went against everything I knew about how committees were run. The idea of councils sounded like a little like Friendship City, but so massive and controversial that I couldn't really build a frame around it. Calamity glanced over his wing towards the door. Railright was prodding the two obligatory Pegasi out while Silhouette stood by Morning Frost's cot. Lil Pip, I gotta go. I waved him away. Go help them. As best you can, my friend. Calamity rotated, flapping his wings and lifting into the air. The breeze from his wings cooled me. Calamity, I called up to him as he began to move. He stopped, looking back at me. We will fix this, I assured him again. At his pained expression, I had admitted, you're right. We can't fix dead, but we can make our deaths, or their deaths, meaningful. How, Lil Pip? I don't know, I admitted. Yet. But I promise. We will. We can make this the start of something better. Something worth dying for. Calamity smiled. It was a thin smile, but a genuine smile. I'm gonna hold you to that. I smiled to him. My first friend. Thank you. Calamity glanced towards the door. Railright, Tracker, and Sunglint had already left. Stiletto was having some difficulty getting Morning Frost maneuvering around the other cots. I watched as Calamity's gaze traveled from cot to cot. The elderly buck who lost his leg was in here. A colt, his body wrapped in blood-stained bandages, a victim of shrapnel, was crying into his mother's breast. One of the ragged pieces of explosion, thrown debris, had slashed through his cutie mark, less than a week old. The stallion 3 cots away was sleeping, heavily sedated. His wife had been in the street with the Enclave that they hosed with burning plasma. She had probably been one of the burning ponies I had shot out of mercy. The stallion had injured himself badly trying to get close to her, but his burns were less painful than the anguish of seeing the pony he loved, screaming in agony, engulfed in plasma fire, of having that image seared into his mind as the last memory of her. For once, I was the least wounded person in the room. But what do we do until then? Calamity asked, not looking back. I bit my lower lip, my body trembling. I could sense the tears coming, but I tried to fight them back. Not here. Not now. We do what SteelHooves would do, I said. We soldier on. After he left, I stared once again at the ceiling fan, my mind spinning just like its blades. We soldier on. Until we can find a way to make this right, to make things better, we endure. We persevere, We keep helping ponies however we can. It's what SteelHooves would have done. Got your water? The Ambermare's voice rang out as she trotted towards me. I felt the soft impact of the canteen on my chest. I heard a pop and a hiss as she opened the bottle of sun-sized sarsaparilla for herself. The sound caused my memory to flash through my head. Are we on a date? A memory of SteelHooves. Oh goddesses, I missed SteelHooves. And with that, the floodgates opened. It didn't matter where I was, or who was around me. I curled up and began to cry. Deep, wrenching sobs. For how much Velvet Remedy was hurting, and Calamity. For Ditsy Doo, who had nearly died. I sobbed for the husband who had lost his wife. The old buck who had lost his leg. The town who had lost the joy of sunlight to bloody battle. I wept for the little filly whose ashes I kept in a cola bottle. And for Star Sparkle. But most of all, I cried for SteelHooves. Swiftly exhausted, Ditsy Doo had moved upstairs with Firelight, leaving Silverbell to mind the store, and her griffin bodyguard to mind Silverbell, and make sure no pony wandered upstairs after her. While every pony was preoccupied, Zenith tugged my cot into Ditsy's room, giving me a bit of peace and privacy. Cry today, rest today, fight again tomorrow. I had wept for hours. Zenith was keeping vigilant guard at the door, her efforts primarily needed to keep the three young heroes from barging up to try and help. I didn't need or want their help. I wanted to cry some more. I needed sleep. I was out of tears. My body was exhausted, my mind incoherent. Still, I couldn't fall asleep. I was too tired to sleep. The gears of my mind had become detached, spinning free. They whirled in my head at the speed of thought, producing nothing. So many lives were on a razor blade. So many would die while I slept. Red-Eye and the Enclave. There was so much to do. Too much for my brain to grasp. I needed a way to make it right. To make it all matter. I tried to focus, believing that if I could just corral my thoughts, railroad them, then maybe I could finally rest. But my thoughts did not want to go to happy places. Instead, they returned again and again to Splendid Valley, in that little place just beyond its rim. My memories fixed on the sensation of being floated out of the safe room, the Super Alicorn pulling me to safety. Ditsy Doo had found me. Twilight Sparkle had saved me. At least, I really wanted to believe. She'd stared at my saddlebags. I hadn't really noticed it then, but I recall that now. She seemed fixated on them. In a rush, I suddenly, yet absolutely knew that it was Twilight Sparkle, or at least what was left of her, riding that alicorn, controlling it, and I knew how she had found me. Be strong, be pleasant, be unwavering, be awesome. She hadn't been saving me. I found myself doubting that what was left of Twilight Sparkle even realized I was there. She was saving her friends, saving them from a fate that literally was her own. Or maybe she had just sensed herself, and in the grip of some nightmarish deja vu, she had come to her own rescue. I couldn't be sure. My thoughts slid into a more jumbled memories at the sound of erupting earth. Did you find anything this time? Calamity's voice rang through my head as I pictured SteelHooves' head rolling away from his body. I choked, forcing myself to pull my mind away from that, only to have the scene replaced in my mind's eye by Velvet Remedy clinging to Calamity, sobbing. We fight and hurt and bleed to try and make Equestria better, but you can't stop something until you take away its reason for being that way. I couldn't stop the raiders. They were born of the horror and harshness of the wasteland. All I could do was keep killing them until I drowned in their blood. History's greatest mass murderer. Red-Eye, the Enclave. Red-Eye claimed that he was going to remove himself from the equation. As strange or foolish as it might seem, I believed him. He was an honorable bastard of sorts. But the Enclave. How could I stop something as mighty as a whole army? A whole government, if I understood half of what I thought I did about them. Only time they can act as one is when they're feeling threatened. Gah! I just wanted to sleep. I was going to go crazy. Surprisingly, I found myself thinking of Rainbow Dash, and remembering the rings of crackling, electrified smoke fanning out over the table map of Equestria. That would start rain. I designed it after the contrails of the Wonderbolts, Rainbow Dash had boasted. Everything about the Single Pegasus project goes through me, and it doesn't get my hoof of approval unless it's cool. Start. I wasn't sure why, but my mind caught on that word. Start. I could hear the metallic drumming of the rain on the roof of absolutely everything. Start. The store shook at the rumble of overhead thunder. The towers could start the rain, Equestria-wide if they were ordered to. That meant they could also stop the rain, make it a sunny day, Equestria-wide. I felt the gears in my head fitting back into place with the new configuration. A new mental machine building a new picture. Agriculture, you silly corn, Radar said. Without the towers, the Enclave falls. The only way to stop the Enclave, to save Equestria, was to take control of the cloud curtain, peel it back, give sunlight once again to Equestria. Not only would that break their power, it would reveal the lies and show the Pegasi what was really going on down here. That was what the Enclave feared, and for good reason. If the cloud curtain was lost, it wouldn't destroy just the Enclave. It would force the Pegasi to return to the surface. They would no longer be able to sustain themselves. Ultimately, it was all about agriculture. The Pegasi would neither reunite with the Earth Ponies and Unicorns, or try to invade. Judging by the 3 Pegasi I had seen today, and trusting Calamity's word, most of them wanted to help. Even so, it could really get ugly really fast. Red-Eye, however, probably considered that acceptable. He had plans for a massive agricultural base in the Everfree Forest, but that was years away from becoming reality. Until then, ponykind would be struggling to survive on the remaining crops and scraps. Who knew if there would be enough? But there was something else. One other chance that Red-Eye didn't know about. It would take an army to stop the Enclave. Just one pony. One expendable pony. A pony who wasn't necessary to make things right again. You've never been forced to give up your principles for the greater good, Red-Eye had once told me. To sacrifice yourself and become a monster because it was the right thing to do. Suddenly, I knew. I knew my purpose. Bringing back the sun. Rings of crackling, electrified smoke. The pony in my head pondered. But what about when the towers stopped the rain and cleared away the clouds? What would that look like? Not the same. Same as boring, Rainbow Dash had said. At least, she had in my dream. Calamity's words echoed through my head. Well, there's only one way to clear an area that big, that fast. And that's with the sonic rain boom. Despite my overwhelming weariness, I bolted upright. Sunshine and rainbows. I'll be damned. Somewhere in the other room, a rush of excited voices rose and fell, followed by some pony turning up Ditsy's radio loud enough to distort the voice of DJ Pone 3. Back, children, but not for long. So here's a few things I've got to tell you about. First, our hearts and prayers go out to the folk of Friendship City, and every pony who had relatives there. Late yesterday, in the most horrific attack yet, that airborne plague calling themselves the Enclave brutally slaughtered Friendship City. The city's gone, children. Hundreds of ponies dead, If you don't believe me before, believe me now. The Enclave ain't here to save any pony. They ain't our friends. But I'm not bringing you a dark cloud with a silver lining, children. Here's the good news. The ponies of the Equestrian Wasteland are standing up against them. And I'm not just talking about our bringer of light, although she's been right in the thick of it. When the Enclave came for Friendship City, she struck back at them. Thanks to our Wasteland heroine, the Enclave lost everything they threw at Friendship City. And more importantly, a couple hundred ponies survived the attack. But she ain't the only hero standing strong against the Enclave. Remember those renegade steel outcasts I told you about? Well, they call themselves the Applejacks Rangers now. And even as I speak, the Applejacks Rangers are working round the clock to ferry survivors off of Friendship Island, protecting them on the way to new homes. Where can they find new homes, you might ask? The answer is everywhere you go. Even that normally stuffy 10-pony tower has opened its doors to refugees, after a hoofful of unicorns rose up and kicked the Enclave's sorry tails out of their tower. Yeehaw! Score 1 for the good ponies. And I've got more reports coming in. Heroes all the way from Shattered Hoof to Hoofington have been holding the line against the nightmares from above. I have a tale here of 2 such heroes taking down one of the warships just south of Stalingrad. Left a calling card, Lion and Mouse. Well, tell you what, Lion and Mouse, drop by 10-Pony Tower sometime. As soon as my assistant is back from her vacation, I'd love to have her sit down with you for an interview. And the Griffins and Ponies who fought off the Enclave of Shattered Hoof. Damn fine work. But the biggest strike against the Enclave has come from none other than our beloved author of the Wasteland Survival Guide, Ditsy Doo. You all saw it. Hell, I could see that glow all the way from Shattered Hoof Ridge. We don't even have a name for what the Wasteland's favorite Pegasus managed to do this morning. Sonic Radboom? Toxic Rainboom? Whatever you call it, I call it a miracle. So do I, love. Now don't worry, children. I know, I just kinda let my location slip, but the Enclave already knew. I saw a whole murder of them flying this way toward the tower monitors before I started broadcasting. They'll be out the door any moment, and I don't think they plan on inviting me to tea. But don't worry about me. I'm not a fighter. Never really have been, not even when I was a Wasteland Explorer. I was more of a hacker and repair pony myself, fixing things up, building off of schematics, making the technologies and magic of the world work for me. I can barely shoot a gun, but it doesn't mean I'm going to lie down and let them take me. Any chance of sleeping evaporated at those words. I lay in my cot, my nervous crackling, anxiously straining to hear every word, every background sound that came over the radio. It took me a moment to remember my own earbloom and tune in to the broadcast on my own pip-buck leg thing. So, 2 things before I leave you again. First, I want to dedicate this broadcast to the late Elder SteelHooves, founder of Applejacks Rangers. I know, with all the death we've seen, it might seem odd to single one pony out, but SteelHooves wasn't just any pony. SteelHooves was a hero, a protector of ponies. He put his life on the line saving others, and he inspired others to do the same. A whole legion within the Steel Rangers broke away to follow his example. SteelHooves was a companion of our Wasteland heroine as well. She was stronger with him at her side. Her victories were often his victories as well. When I first met SteelHooves, he was making sure Chief Grimstar died a hero in the eyes of the ponies under his care. I came to know him fairly well over the last few weeks. Of course, she had, I thought. She'd watched my memories. I'll tell you the truth. SteelHooves was not without his flaws. He was not always a good pony. He meted out justice as he saw fit, and I did not always agree with whom he chose to play judge and executioner. But that is the harsh law of the Equestrian Wasteland. But he never faltered. He held true to his love and his principles, fighting until the day he died. SteelHooves had lived an impossibly long life. His death was swift, painless, and in battle. It was the death I believe he would have wanted. And now it is our turn to hold true, to fight, and to never falter. Tears trickled down my cheeks. I was weeping again. And with that, my children, I have a confession to make. This broadcast, it's not exactly live. And I have a message for the black armored soldiers who just burst into the station at Shattered Hoof Ridge Tower. The thing you're looking at with the glowing blue light? A little homebrewed surprise rigged to the spark battery from a weapon made by the motherfucking stars. Farewell, you. The broadcast cut off with an abrupt burst of static. It wasn't replaced by the Enclave radio. The airwaves just went dead silent, and remained so for the longest 10 minutes of the Equestrian wasteland had ever experienced. From the cot of Ditsydu's room, I had only the darkness and Homage's words to guide me. I could not know that my love had struck the deepest, most vital blow to the Enclave yet. I did not realize that Homage had pulled the entire power supply from that alien weapon and rigged it to a bomb. I did not see the brilliant blue explosion that obliterated more than just the base station and the dozen heavily armored Enclave Pegasi inside. For 200 years, the nearly 50 towers of the single Pegasus project had stood, impervious to everything the enemy and the wasteland could throw at them. I was not a witness on that snow-swept ridge as one of those towers cracked, shifted, and came tumbling down. I awoke, disoriented by the sense of having lost time. I do not remember falling asleep, but my body was rested. I could get up, walk around again, and I did so. The metallic pattern of the rain sizzled from the air above. The ghosts of dreams returned to me, faded and fragmented. Dreams of sunshine and sonic radbooms. I was hungry and thirsty. I had a slight headache, and I needed to relieve myself. Stumbling to the store, I was surprised to find it devoid of medical cots. Instead, the store had been taken over by the Griffins. Outside, thunder rumbled. Godwina Grimfeathers was talking to Ditsydu's bodyguard. There were two smaller Griffins present, adolescents, if I am sizing them up right, similar enough in build and stature to make me suspect they were twins. One of them was talking to Calamity, a discussion that seemed to focus on a pair of odd pistols she carried in holsters strapped to her breast. She had one of them out and open, holding it carefully in her talons for Calamity's inspecting eye. The Griffin was of similar build to Gawad, but slimmer, and would definitely be appealing if it weren't for the suspicion that she was at least 5 years younger than me. I could tell she'd grow up to be very pretty, if the wasteland would let her. The other Griffin was leaning against the shop counter, a bemused expression on his beak, as Silverbell tried to sell him one random item after another. He had apparently already bought an iron, 3 billiard balls, and an empty Kintan, just to keep the little filly happy. Ditsydu was hovering over her workbench, literally, working on something that looked a lot like my Canterlot police barding. At my appearance, she scooped out the barding, taking her chalkboard in her mouth, and fluttered over to me. The ghoul Pegasus offered me the barding. It was indeed my armor, but Ditsydu had repaired and reinforced it, making it stronger and more protective than ever before. Her chalkboard read, it was looking a bit shot up. I blushed. Thanks. How much do I owe you? Ditsydu seemed to laugh. She set down the chalkboard, rubbing it clean with a hoof, then wrote, no charge. The Wasteland Heroine Wears Armor by Ditsydu. Your good advertisement. The ghoul smiled at me. The smile was grim, showing too many teeth and too much of her gums. But I felt the warmth of it. She wanted to help. The advertising was an excuse. I threw my 4 hooves around her. giving the ghoul a squishy hug. She tensed just a moment, then hugged back, squishily. "You're a good friend," I whispered to her, "and a good pony. One of the best this world has to offer. Thank you." She pulled back and looked at me oddly, then shook her head and pointed at my chest. My guess was she was saying, "Not me, you." Either that, or she was starting an impromptu game of tag. Before I could respond, Silverbell ran up to her, her little horn glowing with a faint silver light, as she floated a small pile of bottle caps up to Ditsy-Do. "Look, Mommy, I made a sale!" A gentle, crystalline melody, like the chiming of a dozen silver bells, wafted through the store. Calamity approached me, followed by the young griffin woman with the pistols. "Lil Pip, you're awake!" Part of me wanted to run to him and tell him I had a plan, that I had somehow had an epiphany, and I knew just what needed to be done. What I needed to do. It wouldn't make everything right, but it would be a massive start. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed more information. I needed to know how the Enclave was going to react to what happened here, to what Ditsy-Do had done. And I really needed to pee. "How long was I out?" I asked, noticing the lack of light through the windows. The store shook lightly as another rolling percussion of thunder. The thundering in my head grew a little worse. "About 12 hours, Calamity admitted. "Most of the day. I needed to take care of a few things. I needed to borrow a bathroom and maybe some painkillers. But before I could excuse myself to take care of either, Calamity wrapped her wing around me and ushered me towards the two younger griffins. You'll never guess who." I said uncomfortably. "Lil Pip, this is Cage and Reggie," he said, pointing at the male griffin first. He smiled wearily as he put his newly purchased tin can into his saddlebags. "Cage, Reggie, this here is Lil Pip." I raised a hoof in a timid wave. "Bringer of light and heroine of the wastelands." My hoof dropped as my face went red. I hated Calamity so much then. "I'd say old Derpy did more light bringing today than you, Lil Pip," Cage chuckled, offering a set of talons. I hesitated, feeling both embarrassed and slightly offended to hear someone other than a small colt use that nickname, even though Calamity once told me he found it endearing. I lifted my hoof, and he shook it with merciful gentleness. A good thing, since his talons were painfully sharp, even in a gentle grasp. I drew my hoof back, checking the spots for blood. Sure enough, he had taken my hoof off. He could have taken my hoof off if he wanted to. I shifted my attention to the pretty young griffin, extending my hoof with a slight wince. I felt myself blushing slightly more. "Cage and Regina Grimfeathers," Calamity whispered in my ear. I froze. My jaw dropped open. "Yeah, that's right," Reggie smiled. I could see Cage already rolling his eyes. "We're the children of God." God had kids? The little pony in my head started running around in circles, protesting. "I was not checking out your daughter. I was not checking out your daughter." My gaze shifted to Godwinna, who was now talking to both Ditsy and the other griffin. Ditsy-Do was holding up one of her chalkboards. I couldn't see the writing, and God was answering. "Well, I can't really go charging the town for protection if we didn't show up to protect it, now can I?" Godwinna is running a protection racket in New Appaloosa that comes with actual protection. The little pony in my head chuckled affectionately. "That's so, Godwinna. Loyal to the contract." Of course, I hadn't been looking at Regina like that. She was a little young for me, not to mention she was a griffin. "God's a griffin," my little pony pointed out. Okay, sure. I had once found Godwinna to be fanciable for a griffin. But that was before homage, and I was really lonely. My eyes took in the griffin, as if trying to assure myself that it was just a passing fancy. Yes, she is strong, and beautifully built, and the scars actually really add to her presence. And apparently, I really like older mares, the pony in my head taunted. But Godwinna didn't look old. First, Velvet, my little pony jabbed. Now, Mommy Griffin. I wanted that little pony to shut up so badly. Godwinna wasn't old. Adult, yes, but... What? Did she have them when she was 3? Not old. She still looked vigorous and built, and... Did I have no sense of age when it came to griffins? Oh my God! Reggie exclaimed loudly, taking her mother's name in vain, like only a teenager could. Lil Pip's hot for mother. Luna's moaning moonmeat. The burning in my cheeks exploded over my entire body. What? No, but... I saw Godwinna looking back at me, her eyebrows lifted high over her good eye. Gah! I collapsed to the floor in pure embarrassment, trying to bury my head under my hooves. Kill me now. And here, I was going to say your boyfriend was looking for you outside. God called over to me, mercifully, giving me the excuse to dash out into the rain like I was being pursued by a pack of hellhounds. I leaned against the train engine that made up a part of the hedgepodge construction of absolutely everything. It was dark, dead hours of the early morning, the hour where the darkness lays most heavily on the soul, and the hunger monster outside claws at your door. Rain poured down, turning the streets into rivers, washing away the radiation and the blood. The lights of New Appaloosa cut beams through the rainfall, making the falling water shimmer and shine in the blackness. Water spilled from rooftops and gurgled down gutters to splash into overfilled rain barrels. I was quickly soaked to the bone. No pony was outside. My utter, devastating humiliation took a back seat to my need to pee. I trotted over to the side of the building, glancing around to make sure I wasn't being watched, and started to relieve myself into a streamlet. Hello, little Pip, a voice said from absolutely nowhere, and about 2 yards in front of me. I jumped up, my heart trying to leap out of my chest. Embarrassment, annoyance, and shock fought each other for dominance, as I recognized the mechanical voice of Watcher. Oh, sorry, I'll just be over here. A little late now, I shouted. Damn it, I should have used my ice-forward sparkle to check the area. With a deep sigh, I brought out my EFS and located the Spritebot. Are you alright? I asked. Might as well talk with him. It wasn't like I was going to be able to finish after that anyway. Me? Yes, but... Watcher sounded hesitant. I wanted to make sure you were okay. And guilty. Are you? There were so many ways the answer to that should have been no. But instead, I cut to the chase. What's wrong? Watcher was silent for a minute, the Spritebot bobbing in the rain. I goofed up, little Pip. My mind strained, trying to imagine a huge, ferocious dragon saying the word goofed. But this was Spike. I've put you in danger. I closed my eyes. Danger wasn't exactly new. What happened? Somewhere behind me, I heard a door open and close. Lil Pip? Calamity called into the night. I lifted a hoof, motioning for Watcher to hold his thought. Over here, I called to Calamity. The Spritebot waited silently until Calamity trotted up next to me, his hooves splashing in the streamlet I had been using a couple minutes ago. The Enclave has set security footage of you guys in the Ministry of Awesome, and High General Harbinger managed to get a transmission out of Maripony before it went up. They put 2 and 2 together. Not exactly unexpected, And I was the only pony who found it exasperatingly wrong that High General was an elected position. Watcher continued. The Enclave have sent their best hit squads after you and your friends. Ah, hell, Calamity moaned. Who? I asked. The Wonderbolts, Watcher informed us. I blinked. Wait, who? The Enclave have named their best pack of hunters the Wonderbolts? There was something in my heart that wanted to kick their asses just for using that name. That is so wrong. It gets worse, Watcher admitted. One of the Enclave's Skyguard ponies who saw you two in my cave was a junior member of the Wonderbolts. He recognized you, Calamity. They came to my cave. Gunshot, Calamity muttered. I remembered the Pegasus. That's Deadshot Calamity, winner of the best young sharpshooter competition 4 years running. You don't forget the pony who beat you. One of the Wonderbolts, I so wanted to absolutely stomp on them, was second only to Calamity as a sharpshooter, and Calamity never missed. My eyes widened in sudden alarm. Spike, I gasped, forgetting myself. Your cave. Did they... No, please. Don't let the Enclave destroy the gardens of Equestria. It's safe, Spike said, through the sprite bot, filling me with relief. But, well, you understand why I had to get them out of here as quickly as possible, don't you? His voice, even though synthetically manufactured, was still sounding plaintive. Calamity exhaled a long sigh. What'd you tell him? And I've never been very good at negotiating, or being interrogated. Spike continued. What did you tell him? Calamity said sternly. Nothing much. Really. Just... Spike paused, as if steeling himself. I told them you had been in Ironshod Firearms. Calamity blinked. Huh? Old weapons factory, I told him. I met Watcher outside of it once. Long time ago. I asserted, even as I realized, that it wasn't that long ago at all. 2 months. But those 2 months had been a lifetime. Before I met you. Okay, Calamity pondered. Then, I don't get it. So what? But I knew what Spike was worried about. My mind was flashing back to when I learned about the Steel Rangers, and when they were after Stable 2, and my fears that it was somehow my fault. That when I had hacked the door to Stable 29, I had left something behind. And I was a lot less careful or experienced back in Ironshot Firearms. I'd hacked into that computer office like a careless amateur, left my virtual hoof prints all over it. How technically proficient are the Wonderbolts? I asked slowly. Calamity frowned, shifting his position. It depends. He took a deep breath and addressed the sprite bot. Do the Wonderbolts still have wind shear and lens flare? Who? I questioned, figuring their names I might need to know. Calamity rustled his wings. Windshear's my eldest brother, the rust-coated Pegasus told me, adding, Dad's favorite. Master of Communications Technologies, top of his class, graduated with honors, made corporal, member of the Wonderbolts. He shook his head. Only one of us Dad ever seemed to really approve of. But then, why wouldn't he be Dad's favorite? I winced. And lens flare? Windshear's best friend, rival, occasional lover, Calamity said. Expert repair pony, especially when it comes to magical energy weapons. Taught me a trick or two I used to build the Nova Surge rifles for my Enclave armor. Also top of his class. Focused in arcano technologies. Crap. We were in trouble. First and foremost, How could we win a war against Calamity's big brother? Then, again, considering what I'd seen of his family so far, pummeling the buck might be highly therapeutic. Winshire left the Wonderbolts several years ago, Watcher told us, immediately making me feel much better about the situation. Followed other promotions, according to the press release. Press release? I questioned. Calamity leaned close and whispered, "The Wonderbolts are the stars of the Enclave, spending as much time putting on shows at patriotic events as they do actually hunting," he added. "Probably more. Celebrities. The best hunter-killer pack in the Enclave. They tracked down and murdered ponies for a living, and they had fans. They put on shows. Ponies lined up for their autographs. They were press releases whenever they had a roster change. How fucked up was that? The lens flare is still with them. He was one of the Pegasi who visited my cave yesterday." My face fell dead. We were all dead. Calamity saw my expression. "Lil Pip?" "They can get my tag from the computers in Iron Shot Firearms," I told him, my voice resigned. "And, as soon as they do, they'll be able to use their armor to locate me, no matter where I go." "I'm sorry, Little Pip," Spike said remorsefully, "but you can just take your Pipbuck off, right? Lead them astray?" I looked at my foreleg, showing the Spritebot how my Pipbuck had become grossly melted to my body. Watcher had the wits to say nothing. I could cut my leg off, I thought out loud. I might even regrow it. Or I could just leave, draw them away. I looked at Calamity. "Keep you safe." "Aw, hell no!" Calamity gave a stomp. "Doing nothing, Lil Pip. We'll stick together." But nothing," Calamity said sternly. Then he smiled. "Besides, I got myself a plan." Calamity grinned, poking my nose with a hoof. "Trust me, Lil Bait. This wasn't going to end well." Footnote: Maximum level.